Now we're going to use a different technique to create completed files out of these. This is what we call the bounce to tracks technique. And it's not actually a function in Pro Tools, it's simply the process of creating the finished footsteps by recording them to another track in the session. Now the reason I'm doing this is because we may want to make some changes to the final footsteps before we export them and implement them in the game. So there's two steps to the bounce to tracks technique. First, I'll make myself an auxiliary input track where I can apply some limiting to the mix of our footstep elements. And I'll name that track master. Then I'm going to select my first source track and shift-click on the last source track to select all of them. Then I'll hold either Option-Shift on the Mac or Alt-Shift on Windows and set the output of any one of those tracks to track master. And you can see that what Pro Tools will do is to create a bus and assign the output of all the selected tracks to that bus. It will then assign that same bus as the input to my auxiliary track. Now I can insert a maxim on the master drop the ceiling and increase the threshold a bit to make sure we're using all our headroom. And again, we're just looking for a tiny bit of attenuation here. We don't want to crush these sounds, we just want to make them a bit louder, and Maxim will also help to bring out some of the quieter details in the footstep elements. Now we're ready to create a new audio track, and I'll name this track Bounce, and we'll click on the output of our mastering track and assign it directly to the bounce track. Now we can simply record these combined elements to the bounce track to create our finished footsteps. And because these overlap a bit, I'll go ahead and mute my second group of tracks so they're not included in the bounce. Then I'll make a selection that includes all of the elements in the first footstep and record that to the bounce track. Then I can simply move that one out of the way, and we'll clean it up and name it in just a second. Now I'm already ready to record the third footstep, so I'll do that one next. And I'll move that one out of the way. Then I'll unmute my second group of tracks, mute the first group, and bounce these out. Okay, so I'll put these back in the correct order. And now we can go ahead and zoom toggle and listen to our final footsteps. And these are sounding pretty good. They're nice and punchy, with enough detail to be interesting, but not so much that they become repetitive and annoying for the player. Okay, so I'm just going to trim these a little bit. And add a very small fade to each one. We could also go in and trim the tail of each clip. Okay, so now we're ready to consolidate these, which I can do using Option-Shift-3 on the Mac or Alt-Shift-3 on Windows. Or you could go to the Edit menu and choose Consolidate Clip. And now we're ready to name them with the final clip names that we need for implementation. So I'll go ahead and click on the first one and name it fs_player.01. Then the second, .02. Now we can select all 4 clips, go to our clip list, and from the clip list menu, choose Export Clips as Files, or press Command-Shift-K on the Mac or Control-Shift-K on Windows. That will bring up our export dialog, and here we'll set the file type to WAV, mono, 16-bit, 48K. We'll choose our directory for exporting, and then click Export. Note that when you use Export selected, Pro Tools will automatically apply dither to the exported files. Okay, so let's go check out our sounds in Unity. Okay, so we're back in Unity again, and here you can see I've already replaced our placeholder footstep sounds with the sounds I just exported from Pro Tools. And we can take a listen to those in the inspector. Okay, so let's take a listen to them in the game. Alright, so those are working pretty well, and you can hear that their level in the game is relatively quiet, which is why we needed to make sure that they were mastered pretty loud inside of Pro Tools. So let's move on to our next set of footsteps.